Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel. In 1893, New Zealand etched its name in history as the first self-governing country to grant women the right to vote in parliamentary elections. This landmark achievement was not an isolated event, but the culmination of years of relentless activism, public campaigning, and tireless efforts by women's suffrage advocates. It positioned New Zealand as a trailblazer in the global fight for gender equality and a symbol of progress in the pursuit of democratic rights. The women's suffrage movement in New Zealand gained momentum in the late 19th century with the Women's Christian Temperance Union, WCTU, at the forefront. Under the leadership of figures like Kate Sheppard, the movement argued that women's voices were essential to creating a more just, moral, and equitable society. Sheppard emerged as the face of the suffrage campaign, articulating the case for women's political rights with clarity and persistence. She believed that women, as equal contributors to society, deserved an equal say in the democratic process. The campaigners employed innovative strategies to garner public support, including petition drives, public lectures, and the dissemination of pamphlets. The most notable of these efforts was the Monster Petition of 1893, which amassed over 31,000 signatures from women and men across New Zealand. This massive petition symbolized the widespread demand for change and was a testament to the organizational skill and determination of the suffragists. Despite encountering fierce opposition from conservative politicians, religious leaders, and segments of society who believed that women's suffrage would disrupt traditional family roles and social structures, the suffragists pressed on. Opponents argued that women lacked the intellectual capacity or temperament for political involvement. However, suffragists countered with a vision of a society enriched by the inclusion of women's perspectives, emphasizing that their participation in elections would lead to better governance and improved social conditions. The turning point came on September 19, 1893, when the New Zealand Parliament passed the Electoral Act, granting women the right to vote. This decision was celebrated as a monumental victory for the suffrage movement and a testament to the power of collective action. When the 1893 general election took place just 2 months later, women across New Zealand cast their votes for the first time, marking a transformative moment in the nation's history. New Zealand's achievement sent shockwaves around the globe, inspiring suffrage movements in other countries. Activists in nations like the United Kingdom, the United States, and Australia drew inspiration from New Zealand's success, studying the tactics and strategies employed by the WCTU and other groups. Kate Sheppard's leadership became a beacon for suffragists worldwide, and her image remains immortalized on New Zealand's $10 banknote as a symbol of courage and progress. The legacy of New Zealand's suffrage movement is profound. It demonstrated that societal change was possible through perseverance and grassroots activism. The inclusion of women in the democratic process not only transformed New Zealand's political landscape, but also signaled a shift toward greater gender equality in public and private life. Today, the events of 1893 continue to resonate as a pivotal moment in global history. They serve as a reminder that progress often begins with the determination of individuals and communities to challenge injustice. New Zealand's role as the first self-governing nation to grant women the vote is a source of pride for its people and a symbol of hope for movements advocating for equality and social justice around the world. The women's suffrage movement in New Zealand gained its momentum and strength through the tireless efforts of the Women's Christian Temperance Union, WCTU, one of the most influential organizations advocating for social reform in the late 19th century. The WCTU initially focused on temperance, seeking to reduce the harm caused by alcohol consumption in families and communities. However, under the visionary leadership of Kate Sheppard and other key figures, the organization quickly recognized that achieving women's suffrage was essential for broader social change. Kate Sheppard emerged as the leading voice of the suffrage movement, inspiring thousands with her unwavering commitment to equality and justice. She argued passionately that women, as vital contributors to society and the moral backbone of families, had an inherent right to participate in the democratic process. Sheppard believed that women's involvement in politics would not only ensure their voices were heard, but also lead to more ethical and just governance. This belief resonated with many New Zealanders, especially women who saw suffrage as a pathway to addressing critical issues such as education, public health, and the WCTU, under Sheppard's guidance, employed innovative strategies to build support for the suffrage cause. They organized public meetings, circulated pamphlets, and wrote letters to newspapers to educate the public about the importance of women's voting rights. Perhaps their most significant tactic was the creation of petitions, which allowed women across the country to visibly demonstrate their support. These petitions, collected over years of campaigning, showcased the growing demand for suffrage and helped build a powerful case for reform in Parliament. One of the defining moments of the movement was the presentation of the 1893 Monster Petition to Parliament, which contained over 31,000 signatures, an extraordinary achievement in an era when travel and communication were limited. The petition symbolized the unity and determination of women across New Zealand, transcending regional and social divides. It also underscored the sheer organizational capability of the WCTU and the depth of public support for women's suffrage. Although the movement faced significant opposition from conservative politicians and social groups who argued that women's suffrage would destabilize traditional gender roles and undermine societal norms, Sheppard and her allies remained steadfast. They countered these arguments with reasoned debate, emphasizing that women already bore immense responsibilities within families and communities, and that extending the vote to women would only strengthen democracy. The efforts of the WCTU and the leadership of Kate Sheppard ultimately paid off on September 19, 1893, when the Electoral Act was passed, granting women the right to vote. This historic victory made New Zealand the first self-governing country in the world to achieve this milestone, setting an example for suffrage movements worldwide. Kate Sheppard's vision, determination, and strategic brilliance were instrumental in this achievement, earning her a lasting place in history as a champion of women's rights. The work of the WCTU and the suffrage movement not only changed New Zealand's political landscape, but also inspired women's movements globally. Their success demonstrated that societal change could be achieved through unity, persistence, and the power of grassroots activism. Today, the legacy of the movement and Kate Sheppard's leadership is celebrated as a defining moment in the history of democracy and gender equality. The women's suffrage movement in New Zealand gathered significant momentum in the late 19th century, propelled by grassroots activism and strategic campaigning. Advocates for women's voting rights worked tirelessly to educate the public and garner support, organizing petitions, public meetings, and debates to advance their cause. They recognized the power of collective action and used it to amplify their voices across the country. One of the most iconic moments in the movement was the presentation of the Monster Petition to Parliament in 1893. This massive document contained over 31,000 signatures from women and men across New Zealand, a remarkable achievement given the limited communication and transportation methods of the time. The petition not only demonstrated the widespread demand for suffrage, but also symbolized the determination and unity of the movement. The act of collecting signatures from such a diverse range of communities highlighted the deep-seated support for women's voting rights and underscored the importance of grassroots mobilization. Despite these efforts, the suffragists faced significant opposition. Many conservative politicians and societal leaders argued that granting women the right to vote would upset the established order, disrupting traditional gender roles and weakening family structures. They claimed that politics was a male domain, and that women were ill-equipped to handle the complexities of governance. These arguments reflected the deeply entrenched patriarchal norms of the time, which sought to confine women to domestic roles. However, the suffragists countered these claims with a clear and compelling vision of a more equitable and inclusive democracy. They argued that women were already active contributors to society, fulfilling vital roles in families, communities, and the economy. Denying them the right to vote was therefore an injustice that needed to be rectified. The suffragists also emphasized that women's perspectives would enhance political decision-making and lead to better outcomes for society as a whole. This vision resonated with many New Zealanders, who began to see women's suffrage not as a threat but as a necessary step toward progress. The persistence and strategic brilliance of the suffragists eventually overcame the opposition. Their ability to build broad-based support and articulate a clear moral and practical case for suffrage played a crucial role in changing public opinion and swaying lawmakers. The pivotal moment in New Zealand's suffrage movement occurred on September 19, 1893, when the Electoral Act was passed into law, granting women the right to vote in parliamentary elections. This groundbreaking decision made New Zealand the first country in the world to extend full voting rights to women, setting a global precedent. It was the culmination of years of persistent advocacy, public petitions, and tireless efforts by suffrage leaders such as Kate Sheppard and the Women's Christian Temperance Union, WCTU. The significance of this milestone extended far beyond New Zealand's borders. In November 1893, women across the country exercised their right to vote for the first time in a general election, marking a transformative moment in global democratic history. The peaceful integration of women into the electoral process demonstrated that gender equality in politics was not only possible, but also beneficial for the democratic system. This achievement challenged prevailing norms and provided a beacon of hope for women's rights activists worldwide. New Zealand's success inspired suffrage movements around the globe, serving as a rallying point for activists in countries like the United States, the United Kingdom, and Australia. For women in these nations, who were still fighting for the right to vote, the New Zealand example showed that change could be achieved even in the face of entrenched social and political opposition. Suffragists studied the tactics used by the New Zealand movement, such as grassroots organizing, mass petitions, and the strategic framing of their arguments, and adapted these strategies to their own campaigns. Kate Sheppard, as the most prominent figure in New Zealand's suffrage movement, became a symbol of inspiration and leadership. Her efforts and the movement's success were widely publicized, and her image and ideas resonated with feminists and reformers worldwide. The work of the WCTU, in particular, was closely examined and emulated by international suffrage organizations, further amplifying New Zealand's impact on the global stage. New Zealand's pioneering role in women's suffrage was more than just a victory for its citizens. It was a catalyst for a broader global movement toward gender equality. The events of 1893 remain a powerful testament to the effectiveness of collective action, the importance of perseverance, and the universal quest for justice and inclusion in democratic systems. The legacy of New Zealand's suffrage movement endures as a source of national pride and global inspiration. This groundbreaking achievement is commemorated in various ways, celebrating the courage and determination of the suffragists who reshaped the course of history. Among these commemorations is the depiction of Kate Sheppard, the movement's most iconic leader, on New Zealand's $10 banknote, a tribute to her pivotal role in advocating for gender equality. Historical sites associated with the movement, including landmarks where pivotal decisions and campaigns took place, have also been preserved as a reminder of the struggle and its significance. For New Zealanders, the suffrage movement is a point of pride, reflecting the country's progressive values and its trailblazing role in advancing gender equality. It highlights a national identity rooted in fairness, inclusivity, and the willingness to challenge injustice. The story of the suffragists and their victory is taught and celebrated across generations, ensuring their legacy remains a vibrant part of the country's cultural and historical narrative. In a broader context, New Zealand's decision to grant women the vote underscores the interconnected nature of global feminist movements. While the struggle for suffrage in each country reflected unique social, cultural, and political circumstances, New Zealand's success demonstrated that change was possible even in the face of entrenched opposition. This milestone resonated internationally, serving as a beacon of hope for activists in countries still fighting for women's political rights. The achievement in New Zealand proved that collective action, strategic advocacy, and unwavering determination could overcome societal barriers no matter how deeply rooted. The triumph of 1893 had a ripple effect that energized and inspired suffragists worldwide. In nations such as the United States, the United Kingdom, and Australia, activists looked to New Zealand as a model, drawing lessons from the strategies employed by the Women's Christian Temperance Union and other suffrage advocates. The movement's success reinforced the idea that progress in one part of the world could serve as a catalyst for change elsewhere, uniting feminists across borders in a shared vision for equality. Even today, the events of 1893 remain a powerful testament to the potential of grassroots activism to drive lasting social change. The suffragists' victory is a reminder. Thank you for watching this video.